Yeah. Okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Mason, and today we have an incredible guest. We have Dwight Boddorf, who is the Borough Manager of Tarentum. So we are super excited to have him here today. This man is incredible. He has incredible background, including armed services, which we truly appreciate. But he is also on a 40 under 40 list that I was able to dig out that I'm sure we'll get to in a bit. Dwight, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
For sure. So I always like to start and jump right into it. So what is the special sauce of your community?
Well, that's a good question. Tarentum is a really unique community in the area. We are one of the handful in Pennsylvania that runs an electric and a water system, but more importantly, it's people are resilient. This is a small community. It's a tight-knit community. We are part of the Rust Belt. So we used to have many, many different types of manufacturing here. Everybody, there's a history of manufacturing, there's a history of Riverfront. There is, and it's been the same families here for generations that all know each other. They live here, they've mingled here for, 100 and some odd years. They know this area in and out. They are some of the most resilient and nicest people that I have met in my career in various levels of government.
That is incredible. And you guys are powerful. You do a lot, and it's been great to kind of hear. But let's take a step back. So how did we get here? Did you always know you wanted to go into public service? What was that? What was your childhood like? And how did we get to this moment?
It's been a long journey. No, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I bounced around a lot as a kid, from living with different relatives. And then for a little while there, when I was in my teens, 16, 17, I was functionally homeless for a little while. So I was kind of unsure where I wanted to go. Military came calling, and I ended up going to the Marines, and I thought, hey, this is great. This is gonna give me some stability. This is gonna give me some skills, something that I wanted to do. Once I had made that decision, I was like, I'm gonna do this for 20 years. That's gonna be my thing. It's gonna be great. Life didn't quite work out that way. When I served overseas in Iraq in 2006, I got hit with what's called an IED, an improvised explosive device. So roadside bomb. That quickly ended my career. I was fortunate enough that I survived, but I have some ongoing health issues. I sustained some serious damage to my spine, my back, some memory issues here and there, and things like that. So I quickly had to pivot. I ended up using my GI Bill, went to school, and when I was going to school, I actually went for elementary education. So it had nothing to do with government or public service. And I really liked it. But as I started to deal with my injuries when I came back, I also realized that although I really liked the teaching aspect of it, I was physically unable to stand for that long and couldn't do kickball with the kids the way that I wanted to do and all those other things. So when I was there, I was also fortunate enough to do what's called work study. And I worked with fellow veterans coming back to help them maximize their GI Bill and go to school. And it's something I really enjoyed. And so from there, I ended up pivoting into Veterans Affairs. And I spent the next probably 10 to 12 years in various aspects of Veterans Affairs. So some of that in higher education, dealing with the government and public affairs. And then after I did that for a few years in higher education, I actually transitioned to the government. I saw an avenue to continue helping veterans just in a different space, in a more broader atmosphere, actually helping to develop policy at the government level to help a larger swath of veterans, from homelessness to education to housing to career, substance abuse, all of that. So I worked at the Department of Veterans Affairs for a couple of years. And then from there, I ran most recently the Veterans Division for Allegheny County, which is the largest veterans population in Pennsylvania. And so I was fortunate enough to develop new policies and techniques within the county, but as well as statewide, and actually work on not just the implementation of procedures, but actually developing statewide and countywide policies. So I spent a number of years working in and around government and eventually made the transition to local government. I kind of went the opposite way of most people. I started at the federal level and then I worked my way down, right? And it's really been an interesting journey to see the lower you go or the closer to the residents, the more impact that you can have. It's an immediate impact that you can see that you're into making this policy or this change, and whether it's good or bad for the community.
That's an incredible background, and first and foremost, thank you for your service. And we're glad you're still here. That is very scary, and for you to be able to walk away, and then be able to not only impact your community currently, but the amount of veterans that you've been able to impact speaks to who you are, and we really appreciate that. And yes, you did do it a touch differently than most, but I have heard that. Wow, I guess I've done over 45 interviews, and I hear that a lot. The closer and closer you get to local, the reason for a lot of people doing that is that impact that you're able to tangibly see and quickly with that implementation. I definitely want to take a step back before we take a step forward, because you kind of talked to some of those policies that you said, because you said not only was it Allegheny County, you were helping implement them throughout the state. Can you kind of talk to some of those policies, please?
Yeah, so some of the state level things, I kind of happened to be at the right place at the right time. So new GI Bill came out. Most people, when you think about the GI Bill, they think that there's just one GI Bill, and that's not really how it works. There's, 6, 7, 8 different versions of the GI Bill that depend on when you served, how long you were in, and that started to change around 2008, 2009, and then it kept evolving. And so I was fortunate enough that I kind of came in at the right time. When I was in higher education, I got to work with some of the state officials as well as the local region and the college and instituting policies for what will we consider in-state tuition. So we ended up getting to a place in Pennsylvania that we allowed for in-state tuition even if you were out of state as a veteran, and then importantly, their family members too. So that was never a thing. And if you think about the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars that would save a family member who has traveled all over the United States for the military, they now get out, they're coming in, and they're trying to use that GI Bill, or their family member who may not have a GI Bill, but they're still getting that in-state tuition. It was a really big deal. And it's still in place at this day. I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to advise on a number of different things from, homelessness to suicide prevention. We started in Allegheny County working with the Department of Veterans Affairs for a really interesting data set when it comes to suicide and mortality with veterans at the ME's office, and helping to identify kind of some markers that we wouldn't have seen otherwise, and translate that information back to the VA so that they can develop national policies. It's a really interesting space. There's a lot of really cool things that if you were in a more traditional government job, you'd just kind of be in one sector, right? You'd be in human services, you would be in economic development, you would maybe be in the ME's office. Veterans Affairs kind of crosses all of those, and so you get a cross section of everything. Pennsylvania also happens to have the fourth largest population of veterans in the country, and so there's a lot of that that translates to the state level and then the federal level, and there's only a handful of people that are actually working in that space, but they're making a very big difference. Things that they're working on right now that I've been able to help advise on is for what we call claim sharks. So these are the individual companies that are coming in that are charging veterans to basically get access to their VA disability. So for many, many years, the veterans organizations, the state of Pennsylvania through their veteran service officers, this is a service that they provide for free or that taxpayers are paying for already to help veterans. Some legislation changed at the federal level in the 2000s. They removed some penalties, and now we see these companies that are coming in and making a profit off that. Some people agree with that, some people don't, but it's something right now that I'm personally helping the state kind of figure out. And where do we want to stand on that? Do we want to allow these? Do we not? Do we want to allow it with some guardrails? So I've been fortunate enough to be able to impact veterans in a large way.
Wow, it definitely seems like it. And then just kind of hearing the different levels. I'm sure it can be difficult as a veteran that's coming back to a community. Who do I speak to get my benefits? Now it's saying like there's private companies that are getting a profit, but even just like with the do I speak to my local government? Do I speak to the state, or is this a federal thing? And just kind of navigating that, I'm sure even just listening to you, it sounds like that would be a difficult process.
It is. It's very complicated. I think that's one of the things that local governments and state governments and federal governments we've all struggled with. Where is that kind of single connection point? It doesn't really exist. So you have your federal benefits are up here that impact every state and everybody, but then each state has different benefits, and then some localities have different benefits and touch points too. And those are just the government provided benefits. There's this whole other layer of nonprofits that can step in to provide different things. There's higher education, there's the economic development and the job side of things. So it can be very difficult to navigate. I think the United States is getting better at coordinating all these things. I can remember when I first got out that these different silos didn't really talk to each other. Higher education didn't talk to the careers, and none of it talked to the benefits side. But they're all starting to get better. There's working groups, there's committees, there's an intentional push to make it easier for veterans to go to only a handful of places to get all of the referrals and information they need.
That's awesome, and I appreciate you being at the forefront of that, because it's important. And yeah, my head's just spinning trying to process thinking through that. So I can imagine when you got a million other things kind of tugging at you and on your mind, trying to just navigate that has to be difficult. Now, taking a step forward, now you are a borough manager. So I always tell people like half of our viewership run or lead municipal government, state government, and then the other half are young people that are civically engaged or interested in maybe having a job in public service. For that, the population that I just mentioned, what is a borough manager? Could you explain that for me, please?
That's a good question. So I liken it to, we're essentially the CEO of a small town. In Pennsylvania, there are a whole bunch of different types of municipalities. A lot of places, you have cities or counties. Pennsylvania has municipal, governments abound. So we have counties like everybody else. We have cities, but we have variety. We have first class, second class, third class cities. We have townships, which are first class and second class, and then we have boroughs. So boroughs make up the kind of the majority of the local government system in Pennsylvania. And what we do is we really run the day-to-day operations. So that is, finance, zoning, public works, in certain cases, utilities like here in Tarentum, which is both water and electric. We work hand in hand with the police department and the chiefs. Really anything and everything that the council sets forward as policy, we make it work. A lot of places you could liken it to a mayor, essentially. We do have a mayor, but our mayor here doesn't serve in the day-to-day capacity. They're part-time. They're more of a figurehead that also helps with the police department. Most of the day-to-day operations are run through the borough manager. So it's a very interesting job. There's always something to do. One minute you're writing a policy and a memo. The next minute I'm out looking at a pothole that opened up in the street. And then 2 hours later, I'm down at the park because we've got geese that are causing problems. So it's a very interesting job.
Yes, and thank you for that. But it sounds like it's definitely varied, and there's a lot of different priorities and focus. For Tarentum in general, what are the strategic priorities? Have you guys gone through? Do you do like a comprehensive planning process, strategic planning, or have you done that recently?
We do. So we actually have a joint comprehensive plan with the towns next to us. So we have two towns north of us, Brackenridge and Harrison Township. So one is a borough, the other is a township that we work very closely with. The three managers work together all the time. Our councils work together. And so our comprehensive plan, there are some common things across the three communities. We are right on the river, so the Allegheny River. So all three of us are river towns. We are in the process of revitalizing and revamping the river for all of us to include new trails, public access for fishing and boating. We in Tarentum have a beautiful riverfront park that incorporates, an amphitheater that we do concerts for the community and all of these things. Specifically, though, the focus of some of that comprehensive planning, and particularly in for Tarentum, is rebuilding our infrastructure, particular our water and our electric. Our water system was built in the 1920s, a lot of it with federal funds. And so we are a post-industrial town that has shrunk. In our heyday, we were about 10, 12,000 people. Now we're about 4,300. And so we have to maintain that infrastructure with, a fraction of the population and funding. And so that is a challenge for us. Electric is unique. Like I said, we are one of 35 in the state that run an electric system. And that's a very much learn as you are on the job type of utility. Most of our neighbors go with the big systems around West Penn Power, Duquesne Light. We fortunately here are able to reinvest that money back into the municipality to have a little bit of a bigger public works or a police department or that amphitheater at the park because of the electric system. Other things that we're focusing on is stabilizing neighborhoods and reducing blight. We have been very aggressive with blight removal here in Tarentum. So we have, as of a couple weeks ago, we have torn down 67 blighted properties since 2019. So we have made a very aggressive push for that. We use a program here locally called the Vacant Property Recovery Program that residents, business owners, even the municipality can apply to the county to recover a vacant property that they can then have legal ownership of it. They can turn it into a side yard, a garage. They can build an extension of their house. It's been very successful. And so we are particularly proud of that. And then the other thing that we have really focused on in the last couple of years is strengthening public safety. So my first couple months on the job, unfortunately, our neighboring town, the chief of police was killed in a line of duty incident, and one of our officers was injured. So we were thrust into kind of a public safety crisis. And in the aftermath of that, we learned some very important lessons, but we also combined our police forces with the town next to us. And that's helped strengthen the public safety kind of aspect of policing, but we also have EMS. And right now, EMS is struggling across Pennsylvania. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but Pittsburgh actually was the birthplace of the EMS system back in the early years, kind of the 50s and 60s. And so, it's near and dear to our heart in this region. We're not going to let it fail. There are some issues with reimbursement and insurance, not paying as much as it used to, the lower populations, high demand. So we are right now working with 4 communities and 2 EMS systems to regionalize. In Tarentum, I am leading that effort right now to make sure that public safety is something that it's always there for our residents.
Wow. For it's a smaller community compared to your heyday, but you're, what do they say, punching over your weight?
We've kind of taken the bull by the horns here. I'm very fortunate that we have a very supportive community, a supportive council. My staff are great. When I come to them and say, hey, we need to regionalize EMS and it's going to be a big lift, they say, okay, great. How can we help? It is a wonderful place, and we are doing our best to make sure that the services are not just stabilized, but really what the community needs.
Yeah, no, and that is delivering that long-term value to people that here at Gentry we always are looking for. Now, I have to ask, are there any barriers to people kind of setting their roots there? I always kind of talk through like a cradle to grave community, so you can kind of have your be in school, come out of school, whether it's trade school, university, get your first job, maybe have an apartment through, a family, maybe a house, and then at the back end of that, aging in place. And obviously there's multiple aspects of that, from things like our differentiated pathways, people that are suffering from homelessness, people that have different types of families, different type of family structure. But generally, how do you think you guys are doing on creating that cradle to grave?
I think we have some challenges like, most other communities. I think we are being intentional about making sure the building blocks are there. We, as an older community, as a post-industrial community, haven't had the same type of investment as some of the communities closer to the city of Pittsburgh. So we're a little north of them. So we're still in the county in the Pittsburgh metro area, but a lot of the ones further south, they get the flashy headlines and they're the investments, and you have companies coming in, and there's a lot of places for young people to work. There's job opportunities. There's retirement communities. There's all of those things. We have not been as fortunate so far, but we are getting there. We are developing the building blocks of reinvesting in the infrastructure, but also revitalizing the main street to bring in more businesses and jobs. The borough recently started a facade improvement program for our business district that has been largely successful. We're seeing investment for the first time in many years into that business district. People are buying up vacant properties, they're turning them into new things. We have a bakery that's going to be opening here shortly that we're very excited about, a candy shop that's being kind of revitalized. And we do have a senior retirement community here. So there are opportunities for the residents that have been born here, that have job opportunities, that can also retire here, but it's not where we would like it to be. We are looking at new avenues, innovation like that facade improvement program, revitalizing the riverfront to bring in more tourism, to bring people here, but also keep the character of the town. Right. We don't completely change the town so much that the folks that have lived here and made this place their home for their entire lives don't recognize it anymore. And so that's a challenge for us too, is how do you introduce change without it being too much? I think that's probably one of our bigger struggles is, we have the ideas, we have the willingness, we have some of the capacity, but making sure that it's also in line with what the residents envision for themselves and for their future.
That is impressive, and again, it seems like you guys are punching above your weight. You have the senior living community. A lot of people I speak to, that's one of the Achilles heel. They haven't really thought through how to keep those people that deserve to stay in their own community after being a part of it and truly building the character. It seems like you guys have that. One more question on that. How's like the housing stock? How's the housing across America? There's such a crisis. How are you guys faring?
That's an interesting question here. So our housing stock is older. So the Pittsburgh region, generally speaking, we've got a lot of pre and post World War II houses. Our housing stock here is limited, like a lot of other places. We have some properties that have been neglected and abandoned, which is why we've been so aggressive with the blight. But there's also a prime opportunity here for people to redevelop them. And we're starting to see that. I remember when I first started here about 3 years ago, literally right next to the borough building, there was a house that was basically abandoned. Developer came in, they rehabbed it. It's sold recently for about $200,000. Family loves it. They're right next to the park and the river, but it's a lower cost even with the redevelopment than a lot of other places in the United States. Pittsburgh consistently has one of the lower housing costs. And then still here in Tarentum, even for the region, you can still buy a house here for, $120,000, $130,000. That's a nice house that even a little further south, that same house would be $300,000, $400,000. So there's a lot of opportunity for it, but we need the right investment. Folks to realize that Tarentum is a nice place to live. You have the riverfront access. We have a spray park. We have a business district. We have all of these amenities if you're willing to travel, an extra 10 to 15 minutes north of the city.
Yeah, that's impressive to have that attainable housing, like the housing that you can actually see yourself buying and feel comfortable. That is not the story of a lot of places that I've spoken to.
Yeah,
Recently.
I would actually say that's one of our more prominent strengths, right? Is the affordable housing. Even if it needs a little bit of work, it's still much more affordable than many, many other places.
For sure, for sure. Now, is there any like initiative or program that you're super excited about that you have coming up here?
The big one that I kind of already hinted at and talked about a little bit is about that EMS authority. So,
Mm,
it has been months, probably a year or two now in the planning. If we can successfully pull it off, which I believe we are going to, we will be one of the first state approved EMS authorities in Pennsylvania. We have a handful of EMS authorities that have been around for a long time, but there's a small distinction of getting it state approval, which will give us a little bit more oomph behind the regulations and the laws. For sustainability, it's a really big thing. We got a lot of people that are watching us to see if we can make it successful, but I believe we can. So I'm very excited about that one. I think it's going to be long term a game changer for the region to make sure that we have, when you pick up the phone and you call 911, then an ambulance is going to be there within 5-10 minutes. So we're very excited about that. The other one that I'm very excited for is the Riverfront development. We have about a mile of Riverfront Park here in Tarentum, and about half of it is being underutilized. We have a stadium that has fallen in disrepair that is no longer used for football and things like that, with like the high school football team and things like that. So that property is going to be completely redeveloped, reimagined. We've had a number of public input sessions. We've had surveys and all kinds of things about putting in a bigger spray park, some more amenities for local kids of not just the younger ones, but also teenagers, so they have something to do. You know, things for folks that want to exercise along the river, that want to just walk, places to rent if you want to have a picnic. It's going to be a really nice thing for the region. And then accessibility to the riverfront too, making sure that we have trails as well as ramps that if you have, you're a little bit older, if you have a disability, that you can also access the river like everybody else will be a very nice thing for the region.
I heard a couple things there. One that kind of keeps popping up is spaces for teens. I think we often think of like young kids or like elementary school kids, and then young adults and teens. Sometimes, unfortunately, get lost. But I'm starting to hear that more and more. So I definitely applaud you there. And then the other side of that is creating those accessible green spaces, accessible areas around the outside areas that are important to everyone. But yeah, I heard in Minnesota they had to redo a park to make it adaptable and accessible to everyone. So I truly think you guys are doing a good job. And the one last thing that I heard there and continue to hear every time you speak is it's good for the region. It's good for the region. And that speaks to the power of the regionalism that you guys are creating. And I think it's important. I'm starting to hear that more and more across the United States, everywhere, down in Texas, down in Utah, or over in Utah. And I think there is some power in that. Can you kind of speak to where that comes from? Did you guys always have that connection, or is this something that you've started? It sounds like you're heading a lot of these initiatives, but just where is that push for regionalism kind of coming from?
I think part of it, it's newer. I think, frankly speaking, it's survival. We all band together. We have a better chance of making our communities a better place for everybody. Pennsylvania, we're not alone, but we're one of in the smaller states that have so many local governments. We have, and in one county alone, Allegheny County, where we're at, we have 130 municipalities. We have another 80 or 90 police forces. There's this very fragmented system, and some of our municipalities, they're less than a half a square mile. They're less than 1,500 people, and to sustain your own police force or water system or EMS with that small of a population might have been doable 30, 40 years ago, but it's been struggling for a long time. Many of us in the field, many of the residents, we all believe that the best way for us to sustain these services really is to work together and to regionalize. It's really a survival, I think, at this point. More and more people are seeing that we're not going to wait here in this region until we're at a critical failure point. We know things are declining, so we'd rather do it on our own terms, work together, have the residents involved to make sure that the systems are built the way that we want them to be built, that are going to survive the next 50 to 100 years. And we have been fortunate again that the residents in my council really have let me run with that. We've had very open and agreeable neighbors in other communities that have said, absolutely, we're on board. How can we help? This region really does want to get back to being kind of the prominent area in the valley. I believe we can get there, but it's going to take us all working together, and they're very open to it.
That's awesome. Awesome to hear. And I love the slow incremental change and also making sure that the community is dialed in with their support, with the support of your neighbors. I definitely can see you guys becoming everything that you believe and everything that is coming there. So I'm super excited to keep checking in and hearing how it's going because I definitely think regionalism is very important. Now, I've heard a lot of great things. I heard a lot of positive things, but would not be doing my job if I didn't check in and ask. If so, imagine you had all the budget in the world, all the staff, everything you could possibly need. What is one challenge that if you could just snap your fingers and change, what would that challenge be?
One challenge, if I had an unlimited budget and unlimited staff, honestly, infrastructure.
Mm,
If I had an unlimited budget and unlimited staff, I'd redo it all. All the roads, all the sidewalks, all of the water, all of the sewer. I mean, really, it's the kind of the lifelines of not just this town, but all the interconnecting towns. The commerce. If all of our roads are terrible, they're not coming through. If we don't have the capacity to put in for a new glass plant that we can't handle the water and the sewer, the region doesn't thrive. And those systems have held up very well for a very long time, but now they are at the failure points, and we just currently don't have the money for that, and many municipalities don't. So if I had an unlimited budget, absolutely, because it would also help the next 10 managers and councils after me. That's really what I would focus on.
I love that, and it's so important. It's sometimes the thing that is easiest to kind of kick the can on. It's like I can delay this capital improvement budget and kind of save it for the next manager or the next council, but
Been
it's
one of
so
those out of sight, out of mind, right? And so the can has literally been kicked for 100 years, and here we are at the end of that can kicking kind of lane. And if I had that budget, I would just absolutely the next 100 years, then it's the next manager's problem. The next 100 years.
No, that totally makes sense. And funny enough, that dovetails nicely to my final question. So I always ask it as what is the legacy, but I kind of like rephrasing the question. What are they going to be talking about? The residents at 25 years, what are they going to be saying about Tarentum?
I hope that it was that we led the way in revitalizing the region and ensuring that the systems are sustainable, whether that's police, fire, EMS, riverfront, economic development, whatever it is. We've taken a stand to kind of help lead. And hopefully we're leading in the right direction. But, time will ultimately tell if we made the right decisions.
That to be at the precipice of the revitalization, to be the unit that brought the communities in the region together, and that is what sparked the change that necessitates it being the great place that it's going to be in 25 years. So Dwight, I appreciate that. Any final words for even our young people or just our viewers in general?
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to get more involved in the local governments. Come to a council meeting, read the policies and the regulations, intern, think about a career, no matter where you want to start in the local government, because we need the next generation of leaders.
I love that. And I can definitely second that. And for everybody here at Gentry, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. And you're doing a lot of innovative things. And it's like almost like you guys are not saying it's anything wrong with that beacon on the hill. Like you're just like galvanizing everyone to work together. So I look forward to continuing to check in on that. But I did just want to say thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you for having me.
For sure. And to all our viewers, I appreciate you guys. Again, this is Dwight Boddorf, the Borough Manager of Tarentum, Pennsylvania. Well, thank you for being here, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great one.
Right.